People of Earth, it is I, the Great Goonan, and this is the Great Goonan Podcast, and I'm here today with Scribble, rapper, writer, musician, and all-around obsessed man about all things in the culture.
Nothing's ever calm. I've been racing all along, wasting every minute of my hatred in these songs. With this anger, I am strong. I am God. Destroy the world around me. I am nothing. I am all, motherfucker.
How you doing, Scribble?
Thank you, bro. Thank you. It's dope to be here. Right off the jump, I want to say I discovered your podcast, and I fucking fell in love. And I've listened to pretty much every podcast you've done. And it's dope to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now you are you're signed with Sony.
Yeah, I have a distribution deal through Sony, and I have my own indie label called Help Patrol. And yeah, I signed a distribution deal last year with Sony and put out my album Black.
You froze up. You froze up. Say that again.
Is it better?
Yes.
Better now?
Yeah. Say the.
Yeah. Black Eyed Children dropped last year through Sony. So I put out that album through their distribution company, I guess.
And how'd you swing that? Did you like get the number of Mr. Sony or like show?
No,
up
what happened was Old Dirty Bastard had a group back in the day called Brooklyn Zoo, and I did a song with a member from Brooklyn Zoo named Judah. Ended up being on a Wu-Tang mixtape called Wu Files, and I got hit up by this dude at Sony who listened to the tape, and it was a really dope distribution deal where you retain all your rights after 3 years. So I'm like, hey, let's do it, you know? So it was a great deal. So I took it.
So Sony has a deal. This sounds very un-Sony that they have a deal that they distribute your stuff, but the ownership goes back to you after how many years you said?
3 years. I retain all rights after 3 years, my masters and everything. So I was like, fuck yeah, are you kidding me? Like, I've never even heard of a deal like that. And it's very rare, you know what I mean? So This dude, Rob Schwartz, he works at Sony. He's an underground fan, you know what I mean? He loves like real hip hop, not this, new stuff going around. Like, he loves real stuff. So when he finds somebody, he hooks them up. So I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it,
But your music is not like, I don't think it's like common hip hop, in my opinion. It is the subject matters you pick, the things that you seem to be, I would say, obsessed with are a little more culturally expansive than normal hip hop is. Generic hip hop is sort of like just saying how great you think you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but you pick specific subjects and interesting takes on it too.
Yeah. I mean, I try and be diverse with it. I mean, I certainly have braggadocio, I'm the shit kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But I try and dig a little deeper. I feel like I have a lot of life experience to pull from. So I've been doing that a lot lately. More when I was younger, I was just, rapping about how I'm the shit and nobody else can fuck with me,
What type of, what would you say your life experience has done for your lyric writing?
Well, like the whole album Black Eyed Children is based on the foster care system that I came up. I was thrown into the foster care system at a young age. And so, my parents were, and I hate to bring this up in interviews because it's almost like I'm bragging about it or something, but I'm not. My parents were like cooking speed, and it was I grew up around nothing but bikers and drug addicts, just like incorporating all that kind of shit. I wanted to make a whole album kind of based around that. So that's what I did with Black Eyed Children.
What's the significance of the title?
So Black Eyed Children is actually, it comes from the, what do you call it? Like kind of a conspiracy theory of these evil little children, who knock on your door at night and, ask and that kind of thing. And So it's kind of from that, but I wanted to take it and kind of flip it and make the Black Eyed Children, you know, the children of abuse, the children of the state, that kind of thing.
So that's what I mean. That's not a normal hip hop subject. That's not a normal hip hop thing. It's usually about what I'm wearing around my neck or who I'm going to bed with, you know?
Yeah. Well, when you're broke as fuck and you don't get laid,
then you're a country singer. Then you're
That's right, bro.
Yeah. But so Black Eyed Children now is out and you have it distributed by Sony and you're able to get it out there. What are the responses from the hip hop community?
As far as, you know, I haven't gotten any like crazy major coverage on like the major hip hop spots, but that's expected. You know what I mean? But as far as, you know, I charted top 50 with the record. I got a lot of dope reviews. A lot of people loved it, and some of my hardcore fans fucking hated it, you know, because it was my album before that, Skinwalker, was more what you were talking about. It's not really talking about what I was wearing or driving or anything like that, but it was like just hard underground hip hop, braggadocio, horror themed kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So I got some fans, but that's to be expected, you know.
But when you came up in hip hop, when you came up in music, who were the people that you collaborated with? Because you collaborate with some significant people now.
Oh, so back in the day, Copyright of the Weatherman. He's an underground MC. I really got started with my homie Dennis. I met this dude when I was cleaning dishes, and he's like, "Hey man, I got a studio. You should like come down." So I went down to the studio, and I'm producers. This dude B-Way who helped sign Wu-Tang and produced Ice Cube and all that kind of shit. So that's really where I started, just hanging around these dudes and absorbing it all. Yeah. And it was all real hip hop. You know what I mean? It was all hip hop that I already loved, and I was well aware who Ice Cube was and Snoop Dogg, like all the OG West Coast shit. Like I already knew all that stuff. So that's kind of where I started, and then I used all that to branch out and do everything on my own afterwards. You know what I mean? So I used everything as a stepping stone, you know.
And you're a West Coast guy, right?
Yeah. So from my first 10 years of life, I was in Southern Oregon with my family, and then I got put into the foster care system, and then I eventually moved to LA to live with my grandparents.
Okay, and then you live in LA still.
Yeah, so, I'm still in LA.
So you're totally a West Coast guy. What was it? I mean, I never quite understood the hatred between the coasts. That's sort of old. It's old now, but back then it was very serious. People were getting killed, and they were musicians, they were singers, they were rappers, and they were getting killed. You know, I mean, at least Sinatra knew people in the mafia who killed people, but he never killed Vic Damone or Perry Como. This never happened.
Oh well, that we know of.
Well, I mean, I think they deserved it. They obviously, Vic Damone deserved the bullet. I don't mean it, Vic. I don't even. But so now with Black Eyed Children, you do have like all these different subjects that interest me. I love the DB Cooper "Man Fell from the Sky," the piece you did. Wow. Man Fell from the Sky, and you like to make videos too. Like they're not just music. They're pieces of theater that you're making with animation and different graphics and things like that. So it's a total experience when you see it. And so Man Who Fell from the Sky, what made you decide that you wanted to write about DB Cooper?
I don't know, man. I knew no other rapper wrote a DB Cooper song, so that was my first time. Right. I'm a huge podcast fan, so I listen to all kinds of podcasts. I love true crime stuff.
Right.
basically I discovered this podcast called the Cooper Vortex, and it's called the Cooper Vortex because once you start going down the path of DB Cooper, you can't get out, man. You're sucked in. And I've listened to every episode of that, and I was just obsessed with DB Cooper for about a year and a half. And that's all I would listen.
And so that's what you like. I might as well do a number on that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Like, and it was such a cool story. It's like such a gangster story. You know what I mean? Like this dude, robs this plane and jumps out.
It's unbelievable. In what was it, 71?
71.
He pretends to hijack a plane. He says he has a bomb.
Yeah.
He goes and has a drink and he chills out. He's in like a Men in Black type of outfit. And he basically tells the people tells the pilot, I have a bomb. You have to land, give me $200,000, go back up in the air, and then fly only 10,000 feet. So give me a parachute so I could parachute out with the money. And then he does, and they have never caught the guy. He's probably dead.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's such a gangster story, bro. And I'm like, what hip hop is obsessed with John Gotti and these type of characters. And it's like, John Gotti murdered motherfuckers. Al Capone murdered motherfuckers. The thing with DB Cooper is he pulled the gangster move, didn't hurt a soul. And that's why he's so dope.
Yeah, and got away with it.
And people say, 200,000, that's it. Like if I was going to do that, but in 1971, you got to add inflation to that. That's about $1.3 million. So to go from nothing to 1.3, if he made it, I believe he made it.
You see, that's the funny thing. People want to believe that he made it.
Yeah.
Like it's like even at the time when the news came out, like most people were like, he's cool and we hope he doesn't get caught. And for all intents and purposes, he didn't get caught. There were these two different people who claimed they knew the identity of DB Cooper. I don't know what you saw on the podcast, because frankly, it's illegal to watch any podcast other than mine. But I mean, if you said you watched probably before you met me, now only this, but there was one fellow who wrote a book called DB Cooper and Me. He's an old man now. And he said that he knew the guy after he did all this stuff, and the guy told him about it, and they lived in Washington, I think it was Washington State.
Yeah.
And that he just took the money to live, to take care of his family, and that's what he lived off of. So he didn't have to worry about anything in life after that. And then there was another lady, a woman whose name is Cooper. And she's like, I don't know how old she is now. She's middle-aged now. And she said that she thinks her uncle was DB Cooper.
Yeah. Her story is
the story's dumb.
So retarded.
Yeah. She comes out of nowhere and she's like, yeah, I got an uncle. By the way, my name is Cooper.
You know what it was? Is she was a really pretty blonde.
Yeah.
And the FBI, they've got to be sick of this shit. They haven't solved it in 50 years. So when a beautiful blonde girl comes in and says, "Oh, my uncle was DB Cooper," they're going to be like, "Okay, well, let's parade her out to the History Channel and all these other channels and make DB Cooper case closed and all this stuff." And her story, there's so many great stories of who it could be, but hers is like way bottom of the list.
Yeah, and also, like, she has him being named DB Cooper. I mean, by all accounts, he probably made up that name. And wasn't there a comic book? He was supposedly this guy was in the war, so he knew something about parachuting and things like that. This is one of the stories I heard. And also there was a foreign comic book that I think he might have known when he was overseas in the armed services, called the DB Cooper comic books. The Dan Cooper comic.
Yeah, it was called Dan Cooper. It was only in French, I believe. It was a French Canadian comic book. Right. And you could only find it in the French parts of Canada, obviously, and overseas in Europe, certain like France and certain places in Europe. And the idea is that this guy was a fan of this comic book, and you really don't need to know French to read a comic book and understand what's going on, Right. So
Right.
The fact that this lady thinks her uncle, whose last name is actually Cooper, who had no military experience,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. There's like zero evidence for it. But you know, my grandfather said he was DB Cooper. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of people who, you know, oh, my uncle was DB Cooper, my grandfather was DB, because it's such a cool story.
Yeah.
It's not like the Zodiac killer. Who's gonna confess to being the Zodiac killer? You know, that's brutal.
Right.
And but
the story is so romantic in its history. You know, it's been romanticized and everything. And so then you did the Man Who Fell from the Sky,
yeah,
about DB Cooper.
Open up the case to show where it ain't fake. Told her take notes, I got some demands I need to make. First I need cake, 200K, and unmarked $20 bills on the way. Second I need 4 pair of shoes for my escape. 2 front, 2 back, or I'll blow us all away. And
that's why I said, and I didn't mean this insultingly, that I said there are things you're obviously obsessed with. I said that you're writing about, because you didn't approach that piece haphazardly. You know, I could like when I watched the video, and the video is animated, and it's, you know, you could see the whole incident is animated, of him being on the plane and jumping out of the plane and everything while the song is going on. And I could say, like watching it, I could say, I bet you he was like watching some podcasts about DB, like this. He's thinking about this,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, a little too much.
No, but I liked it, and I liked the animation too. That you did all that animation, and you like to do these videos and make them visual too.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Well, I mean, the only way I could get a video done for that song would be an animated video, because I mean, if I had to go out and try and find you know what I mean, I don't look right in a suit, so it was perfect for animation, you know what I mean. And yeah. I love that video. That's actually this dude Never Coming Soon, who does all the animation, and he's just a guy in Canada, and I found him, and he does these little animated videos on YouTube. I'm like, yo, if you want to do a whole music video, and he's done like 3 or 4 of my videos, so he's fucking amazing.
Yeah, and it's not that easy to do. I do anime. I have animation in my web series. I have a web series, and I have animation for the intro and everything like that.
Right.
And the animator who did that, there's only one spot where my cartoon character actually speaks, because to animate in sync speech is actually a lot of work. So
yeah, it takes that Man Who Fell from the Sky video took. I mean, he did it pretty quick, because I was on his ass about it. I'm like, yeah, we got to get this out, but don't rush it. I want it to look dope. But it took a couple months. It took a couple months to flesh that whole thing out with the coloring and the animation and everything. And you got to wait a little bit, but once the wait is over, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's the subject matter that you pick is more interesting than your normal hip hop. Also, I would say that I find a sort of rock type of influence in your music too. Would that be?
Yeah. I'm a metalhead before anything. I grew up, you know, my parents were listening to Slayer and Black Sabbath and White Zombie and all that
parents. Your parents were listening to Slayer.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to listen to something when you're cooking speed. You know, I mean, what better to listen to than Angel of Death? You know,
I would have said Bing Crosby, but okay.
Yeah, but I would say that too.
Yeah, but okay. so yeah, I mean, there definitely is a rock type of influence in the way the accompaniment is. I think it sounds.
Yeah. I mean, and I have a lot of if you know your metal and shit like that, like you could hear I have a lot of references, whether it's song titles, album titles of classic metal albums and shit like that. Like I have a lot of that, and it's funny you bring this up, because my next album is actually going to be a full live band, basically a rap metal album. You know, so I got my uncle Abel's playing live drums on it, and I got this homie Scott Von Held, who played with Head from Korn, in his band. He's doing like live guitar on it, live bass. It's going to be a full metal hip hop extravaganza, for the lack of a better word.
Extravaganza.
Extravaganza.
It's gonna be an extravaganza. Now, in your recordings, you have collaborated with some significant people.
Yeah. I try and work with my idols, you know, and I've gotten to do that quite a bit, especially on the last album. I had Chris Barnes did the intro for the whole record, and Chris Barnes, those who don't know, original vocalist for Cannibal Corpse, the first 5 Cannibal Corpse, the classic albums, and then he went on to form 6 Feet Under, which is another huge death metal band. And I hit him up. I'm like, man, the only thing I know is that he had Ice-T on a song way back in the day, so this guy must like hip hop in some sort of way. So I just hit him up. I'm like, hey man, would you ever want to do some hip hop shit? And he's like, yeah, Scribble, let's do it. And so I told him the concept of the album. Within a day and a half, he had his part done, written, recorded. I was like, holy shit, man, this is amazing. And then I had Marcos Carriel from POD play on Vampire Tactics on Black Eyed Children. So the guitar you hear on there, that's Marcos. And that was huge because to me, POD, I mean, that's my era. You know what I mean? I was 10 years old when that song Alive came out. And I remember seeing that song on TV and being like, these guys are cool as fuck. Like, I love these guys, the dreadlocks, the tattoos, everything about it. I loved it. And to work with him later on is like mind blowing to me, you know?
And you just hit him up randomly, or you knew him already?
Yeah, I just hit him up. I think I had a podcast going for a while called the Psycho Head Blowout, and I did a top 10 POD songs with my homie. And my homie tagged Marcos in the post when the podcast dropped, and Marcos listened to the podcast and then followed me. I'm like, well, Marcos just followed me on Instagram. I gotta ask. I gotta take my shot here. And he was totally down.
Wow.
That's all it was, man. Like, Instagram, most of my moves have been made on Instagram, you know? Yes. People are slipping on the Instagram shit.
Most of my moves are made on Instagram as well, and now the judge says I'm not allowed to message those people anymore. But you know. So.
I knew that joke was going to go that way. God damn it.
Well, I mean, hey, you must have read the court papers. But so yeah, there is like definitely a rock influence in your stuff. Are you influenced at all by Kid Rock?
I love Kid Rock, dude.
Yeah,
I love him. I know that's controversial to say.
Why?
These days?
Oh, because
people hate his politics.
Because he likes Trump or whatever. He likes
Trump and all, which I couldn't give a shit about. Like, whoever you like as a politician, that ain't gonna change my opinion on your music. Ted Nugent is a total asshole. That doesn't mean Stranglehold isn't a banger. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna hold Ted Nugent accountable for his political views, so I don't give a fuck.
Right.
So yeah, I love Kid Rock. Kid Rock I get a lot of shit for it, you know, from my metalhead friends, from my hip hop friends. But whatever, man. Devil Without a Cause is a straight classic, and that's all I got to say about it. You know, Kid Rock's amazing.
Well, see, he sort of straddles that idea of a rock sound and a hip hop sound, you know.
Yeah.
And unless I'm wrong, I would say he's the one who was the most prominent who did that. Came up first doing that. I mean, unless I'm wrong, that's what
I mean, you're not wrong. Devil Without a Cause, it came out in '98, and that was right around the era of Korn and Limp Bizkit, but nobody had a diamond record. Mm-hmm. And Kid Rock came out with Devil Without a Cause, and that shit sold 14 million copies. So he was doing something right, you know, from underground Detroit rapper. Kid Rock, when he was just an underground rapper in Detroit, he was the biggest underground rapper in Detroit. People don't know that either. Like, Kid Rock or Eminem was looking up to Kid Rock before Eminem blew, because Kid Rock was the local Detroit rapper who could pack the little, you know, the clubs there and shit like that. So, and sell 14,000 copies out the back of his trunk, you know? So, Kid Rock, man, like, I even love his hip hop shit. Like, people don't know he was signed to Jive, in 1989 by Too Short. Too Short signed before Vanilla Ice came out. Kid Rock was on his own for pretty much all the 90s until he blew up in the late 90s with Devil Without a Cause.
See, that's the thing. Like Eminem and Kid Rock are both from Detroit, but they don't seem like the same people at all. You know?
Yeah, I know back in the day, like Eminem's on that Kid Rock record, a song called "Fuck Off," and Kid Rock did
a Christmas song, yeah,
a little ditty for the kids. But back in the day, Kid Rock was just like a crazy fucking party dude who liked to do drugs, and so I think him and Eminem got along just fine in the late 90s. These days, Eminem distances himself from Kid Rock because of the political shit, which I think is ridiculous.
See, Eminem is interesting because he came out and blew up so big, and he's still around, but he seems ancillary to me at the same time.
Yeah,
you know, like he's around, but like then every now and then, you know, they'll say, "Oh, he's rapping about somebody," and I'm like, "Well, what do I care if who's he mad at?" He always seems mad. Eminem, you know.
I lost interest in Eminem's new music years ago. I don't think he's done anything great since his early days, but that's me. You know, I mean, there's a million stans on the internet who will tell you different, but that's how I feel. He sounds like a fucking robot when he raps now. And I'm just, I ain't having it.
Yeah. Did he do that thing, "We Fell in Love in a Hopeless Place"? Is that him?
You got to give me more than that.
He's rapping and then there's a singer that sings with him.
Yeah, he does a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I Love the Way You Lie was a big one.
The singer has the easiest job because she just comes in and sings like a little chorus, and then he gets mad for 15 minutes, and then she comes back and she's like, "I just want to hold your hand."
Yeah, that's that. When Eminem started trying to get deep, because back in the day, Eminem was like a shock rapper. You know, he was saying crazy shit that people were like, "Whoa," you know, and now like, he's trying to be deep and like tell you about relationships and his relationships with women. And it's very strange. It's just like, yo, dude, like, I don't think you're this type of rapper who I can listen to talk about women like at all, dog.
Yeah, he's not tender.
No, he's fucking disturbing.
He's angry about something. And didn't he just open some place called like Spaghetti Shack or something in Detroit?
Yeah, he opened a place in Detroit called Mom's Spaghetti, and they only have 2 items on the menu, I believe. And one is Mom's Spaghetti, and it's $14.
Yeah, I would never eat spaghetti in a place. Spaghetti. You know, ridiculous. It's like I always have these rules. You know, you don't order spaghetti from a place that is an Italian restaurant, and you don't order clams in a diner. You know, things like that. You don't
eat sushi you don't get sushi at 7-Eleven.
Yeah, you don't get the sushi at 7-Eleven. It's more of a Circle K dinner, but it's much more of a Circle K dinner. Yeah, so Kid Rock definitely is like an influence on you. Did you ever dig I think I'm a little older than you. So the rap that was big when I was young was original Run DMC. You know, what's his name?
LL
Cool J. But who's the guy? God, I can't believe I'm You Got What I Need. Didn't he just die? Biz Markie? Is that who it is? Biz Markie.
Yeah, Bismarck is a one-hit wonder. He's known for that song, but he's one of the greatest live. You know, he wasn't some lyrical rapper like Big Daddy Kane or something like that. You know, like Bismarck was just about simplicity and having fun. So I love a lot of that stuff. I love Bismarck. Flicking Boogers is a hip hop classic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of guys. There were a lot of guys back when I was younger. You know who was big? And I always bring it up to people who are into rap and they get mad at me because, my memory is from my childhood about rap. And so I was a big fan of the Fat Boys, and everybody always goes, "Oh, the Fat Boys." I'm like, "Well, I love the Fat Boys. I used to love them. What's wrong with them?"
Yeah, the Fat Boy. I respect the Fat Boys. I couldn't tell you a song by the Fat Boys, but I know they got a lot of people into hip hop. It's like the gateway thing, right? Like, okay, so for like metal, right? Like a lot of metal heads, they'll start out with like a Linkin Park or a Kid Rock, right? Or something like this, something accessible like the Fat Boys, and then they'll dive into they'll keep digging deeper and deeper, and then next thing you know, you're kind of like one of those introductory groups into hip hop, and then you go from Fat Boys and you discover LL, and then you discover LL and you discover Big Daddy Kane, and it keeps going.
Well, the Fat Boys were half. They were half comedy in my.
Yeah, they were fun. I mean, I love, and people laugh at me for this. I love Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff.
Oh, I used to love them. Like, parents just don't understand. And
I mean, they got some bona fide classics, and people want to shit on it because it's Will Smith, and it's like it's fun, family friendly rap, right? But I mean, he was a great storyteller. Will Smith to me is one of the greatest storytellers in hip hop. Like, that's what he was. He wasn't about like, check me out, I'm the shit. Look at all the chicks I got, and he wasn't that. He was, hey man, let me tell you, girls ain't nothing but trouble. It was very family friendly stuff, and I love that shit, man.
Now, so with Fresh Prince has a song, and so do the Fat Boys. They both have a rap about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
So the Fresh Prince has Nightmare on My Street.
Yeah.
And the Fat Boys had Are You Ready for Freddy? That's the set. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for Freddy? Yeah.
That was huge. I mean, not too many pedophiles get their own songs, but Freddy's got a few.
Not too many pedophiles get their own song. Yeah, this episode is full of sayings that we're going to quote from here on in. Like, what do you listen when you're cooking speed? Not many pedophiles get their own song. These are quotable quotes today, ladies and gentlemen.
This is what I'm here to give you, my friend.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Do you write with beats in mind?
Yeah. I usually have a beat. I mean, the thing is, the beat that I'm usually writing to and doesn't end up being the final beat. I'll usually write some shit, and then I'll find a better beat, and I'll be like, "Yo, this goes perfectly with this. Let me work around this." Then I'll do some rewrites, and make it perfect.
Do you prefer live musicians to synthesize?
It depends. Hip hop, I don't care. Hip hop is like a hip hop show that blew my fucking mind, unless there was a live band, like the Roots, right? Like the Roots, full live band, amazing show, gets all your senses up at the show. But like hip hop is kind of boring live, right? Like you go to a Wu-Tang Clan show, you can't even hear the beat. There's fucking 80 dudes on stage talking over each other, right? Like that's never been my thing. So, but when I do hip hop, when I do live hip hop, I'll have my beats. I don't rap over.
You don't use samples.
No, I use the actual beat. I rap live, and I don't have a hype man. I go up there by myself, and that's how I do it. But when I do this metal album, like obviously we're gonna have to do that shit live, and we'll probably throw in some of my hip hop songs and have live renditions of that too. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never done it before, but it doesn't really bother me one way or the other because rap shows are bullshit anyway.
Why is that?
Just because they're boring. Like I'm from the world of metal, so when I go to a show, I want to see dudes jumping around. I want the energy to be jump. I mean, not to say all hip hop is garbage live, because there is some KRS-One is, and that's just one dude on a stage with a mic. So not to say all hip hop is garbage live, but there are exceptions.
But you're talking about like when you're comparing it to metal shows, you're saying there's no spectacle.
Yeah. There's no energy. There's not. I mean, there might be energy, but it's not to the level that I'm used to. Going to see Megadeth or You know, one of these bands.
You like Megadeth? Is Megadeth? Which one is the one that has the Eddie? The
That's Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden. Yeah, my brother's was into all that stuff.
Yeah, Iron Maiden's a little more old school, but Megadeth's old school too now.
Yeah, Megadeth is old school now too.
They're my all-time favorite band of all time.
Yeah,
All-time favorite band of all time.
well, they, if you think about it, that makes a little sense, because the subject matters that are in a lot of metal songs are far more interesting. You could see,
Oh yeah,
people are obsessed with certain things in metal songs that as opposed to like in hip hop. So I could see that that sort of influence, the metal influence, being partly the reason why you choose the subjects you choose.
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me my influences, I'll always say Megadeth, and people are like, what? You know what I mean? But it's like, yo, like Dave Mustaine was writing about personal issues, drug issues, abandonment issues, and then he was also singing about nuclear war and hell on earth and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So just a lot of, now there is a like, I compare like modern hip hop to shit like Poison and like Motley Crue, right? It's just all vain, girls,
Yeah.
horse shit, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to like the real hip hop is like the thrash metal bands like Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth, and because they're spitting they're talking about real stuff, and so that's my lane. I'm not into the glam rock or like alternative metal or alternative rock.
Right. Well, isn't the alternative to rock non-rock? I mean, isn't that?
Yeah, right. Right.
It's like I'm a comedian, so people will go, well, I do alternative comedy. Isn't that drama?
Yeah, oh.
Isn't the alternative to comedy drama? Like, what do you,
yeah,
like, what do you mean alternative? Like, yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot.
It might as well be, because alternative comedy makes me laugh about as much as drama does.
Yeah, well, that's the point. Like, in their zeal to be different, they've canceled themselves out in a way.
Oh my god.
I think so. I think that happens. I think it happens in a lot of things, but it definitely happens in comedy, and that whole idea of alternative and whatnot.
Yeah.
Was there ever, when you were coming up in music, was there ever a racial issue? Was there ever any, like, only black people can rap, or
I think I kind of missed that wave. I think I'm young enough to where I missed that wave. If I was coming up in the 90s, early 2000s, I've definitely heard horror stories from white rappers from that era,
right.
But I mean, me, like, in the underground hip hop is so much more diverse than like what the mainstream sees. Mainstream hip hop is like one thing. Underground hip hop, you have everything. So you go to underground hip hop, you can see Vinny Paz, a white dude, Diabolic. These are major players in hip hop, just not mainstream hip hop. And there's a lot of white dudes, so I don't feel like I ever have that problem, other than being called white boy, which doesn't fucking hurt my feelings,
Right. Yeah.
But if I came up in the 90s, that'd definitely be a whole thing. I think once Eminem came out, people saw, oh, okay, maybe white rappers are okay.
But wasn't there, what was it, Third Base? Weren't they white?
Yeah, with MC Search and yeah. See, but people love Third Base, like true hip hop heads. I can't fucking stand it.
Well, but I'm just saying.
But I'm just
white
saying.
People, there were white people like already.
Yeah. House of Pain, right? Jump Around, like that was huge, but they were considered cool at the time. You know what I mean? One of the few cool like white rappers, because Everlast was in there, right? And they had the whole Irish thing going on, so they had like an identity. Like I have I'm Italian and Native American. I don't rap about none of that shit in my music because I'm not really connected to it like that. I mean, I've thrown around the thoughts of doing like a full Italian EP, like or doing like like an Italian and then a Native American EP with like, Native American drums and shit like that. And I might do something like that in the future, but it seemed like back in the day, if you were going to be white and successful as a rapper, you had to have a gimmick like that, right? Like House of Pain had. They were Irish. MC Search and them, they were like white 5%ers. So that was fucking weird.
Beastie Boys. Yeah, the
Beastie Boys, they were just like party dudes, and Jewish.
Yeah.
So, but now it's like it don't matter if you're a mutt and you got good music. Like that's all that matters. It doesn't matter like what you are so much.
Right. Are you a fan of the Insane Clown Posse?
I like some songs. I'm more a fan of their movement and what they've done and how these dudes who didn't even graduate 9th grade are millionaires now.
Because they spoke very highly in interviews about Kid Rock. They were like, because I don't think they liked Eminem for some reason. And they were like, Eminem was and they were like, Kid Rock is the real guy.
They don't like Kid Rock either.
They don't like Kid Rock either?
All those Detroit white dudes have beef at some point.
Really?
Eminem came up in a different circle, right? Eminem was like trying to get discovered. He wasn't out there hustling and selling records out the back of his trunk like Kid Rock was. So I think that's more where they were coming from on that. But I've actually done, I'm boys with Boondocks, who is signed to ICP's label. And he's another rapper who, dresses up and has the face paint and shit like that. And I've done songs with him. He put me on his last single that came out. I've done songs with Blaze Your Dead Homie, and he was on ICP's label, ROC. So I have a lot of connections to that label. I'm not huge on their music per se,
Mm. You're a little frozen again. I see
shit,
you. And once I tell you you're frozen, you become unfrozen, as if the computer knows that I have complained. So now you're back. Now you're back.
All right.
Yeah, so it's funny that there are beefs and stuff within show business communities. That was basically what they are, if you want to, and it's just interesting that happens. I mean, there are people who don't like people. Comedians fight all the time, so I understand that. But like, it's just interesting that people are so opposed to each other.
It's so funny, bro, because you know what it is? Like, you don't see beefing in metal. Right. There might be a little here and there, like Dave Mustaine obviously had a beef with Metallica because they fired his ass and took his music. Right. That's a legitimate beef. But you don't see like the amount of beef in metal or any other genre that you see in hip hop. And it's because a rapper, it really convinces himself that he's the absolute shit and that no one can touch him. So the ego is insane. Like, even in this underground community, this underground level where none of us should have fucking egos at all.
Right.
All over the world. But if you're not that, you should cut that ego shit. Because I've had many run-ins with rappers who just, their egos are insane and they haven't done a thing.
Right.
It's mind-blowing. It's like, yo, you at least do something before you start talking shit.
Is there also a desire to be a criminal?
I mean, definitely, dude. Like, the real criminals aren't really rappers.
The real criminals are probably the executives.
Yeah, well, absolutely on that, right, bro. Absolutely on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who haven't done shit, but most of them haven't done shit.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're busy talking shit, you haven't done shit. That's usually the way
exactly.
That's usually the way it is. Yeah. So you're in California, and in California, I believe weed is legal. Is that true?
Oh yeah.
Now, the quickness in which you answered that question would lead me to believe, uh-oh, he's about to show me. I love how potheads are so proud. There's everybody, potheads are the only people who are proud. You know what I love about, I love smoking weed because smoking weed is different. Like, you know, somebody be like, get off of my bottle of gin if they're a drinker. But someone who smokes weed wants to give you their weed too.
Yeah.
You know, and they even won't even let you use your own. They'll say, yours is shit. Use mine. You're like, fine. Whatever you say. Whatever. What do I have? Where is that?
All right. Yeah. It looks like we got the same shit.
Yeah. So have you ever tried Delta 8?
Is that a strain of weed?
It's actually this other thing in places where it's not legal. It's weed, but it's not weed.
It's weed with crack?
No, it's not weed with crack. No, but what it is it's hemp sativa. So it comes from the hemp side of the cannabis plant. Therefore, it's not illegal, but pretty much does the same thing. You know. Yeah. So
see, I've always been like my homies who would come over and be like, "Yo, I got the new B8 17." Be like, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, is it good? Load it up if it's good. Like, I don't give a fuck what it's called, just as long as it's good.
I always find that, you know, people say a lot of things about smoking weed. They go, oh, people are lazy. I find I'm very productive on it.
Well, yeah, I'm hit or miss with it. So, you know,
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
So, like sativa, I always try and get a hybrid or get sativa because it gets my mind going. It doesn't. But that indica makes me sink right into my couch.
Yeah, indigo doesn't seem worth it.
No,
you know, it's not an up. You know, but I always found, because I used to drink. I'm about, in August it'll be 4 years that I haven't had a drink, and I always found drinking to be much worse. But it's
way worse.
Way worse, because you could, you know, I never heard of anyone getting violent from smoking weed, but people get violent when they drink, or they think that they want to fight people and stuff like that. But in weed, if the only reason you pick up a knife when you're on weed is to get the rest of the peanut butter.
Yeah, man. Like I've that's exactly right, bro. Like I don't even like being around people who are wasted. Like back in the day when I would party and get wasted, become that guy who you used to make fun of in the corner for not getting wasted, right? And then you become that guy and you're like, I gotta get the
Yeah. No, it's much better. I'm glad that it's becoming more and more legal. The funny thing about weed, though, is that when in the states that it's legal, they still got to somehow sneak it in because it's federally illegal.
Yeah, it's I mean, I don't even know if California is federally legal because we get weed shops shut down all the time. I don't know. That could be like they're not doing something right or reporting shit correctly. I don't know. So it might be legal on a federal level, but I don't think it is.
No, it's not legal on a federal level. That's the point. Like they have it, but you like anywhere, if it's being grown anywhere, it's still illegal. It's so weird, right? They have to like sneak it and then put it on in the product, and then it's okay to sell in said store. But federally, it's still illegal. That's the dumbest thing I've heard. By the way, when you tell me about these smoke shops being closed down, they're being closed down because the cops are like, we'll have to confiscate this and try it to make sure that it's safe.
It all.
Yeah.
You
know, but so I had a feeling. I was watching some of your videos. I go, he smokes weed.
I'm high right now, man.
Yes. He has to be smoking weed. There's no way that he couldn't.
Yeah. I get high in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the night.
Yeah,
and
morning.
Dessert.
Morning is the best one, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
People forget about that. That's the best thing. Like if you have to go take a trip, like if you take 2 trains to get to work, something, get a little high, take that train trip like that.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier, much quicker, man. Let your mind roam.
And by the time you get there, you're probably not high anymore. So it's like, and you're fine,
Yeah.
So it gives you that little
and then you get high, then you just get high again. And you'll be high again.
Then you just get
beautiful.
High. Then you just get high again. Yeah. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like I know a couple of people who, let's say, are business people in this type of thing in a local sense. And they always have like these funny nicknames. This is sour diesel. This is purple haze. This is, I'm like, is it weed? And they're like, yeah. Well, and that's really.
And now they're calling it. I went to a weed spot the other day, and I called them just to see, what they had and exactly how far they were. And they're like, oh, well, are you looking for flour? And I'm like, well, I'm looking for weed.
Yeah. Because
like,
they're trying.
Yeah, it's flour.
They're trying to tell you if you want the liquid for the vape, or if you want this stupid CBD. I don't want CBD. I want.
Yeah. What am I, 80? Like, my bones are fine. I don't need CBD.
I want THC. That's what I want. And that's what they say. Do you want flour? And I'm like, isn't that the little gay skunk from Bambi? What is that? What are you telling me about this for? Why are we discussing Disney movies? And
that one blew my mind. That one, I was so confused. And I was sitting there high, just confused.
Yeah. You want flour? I'm like, well, it's not my birthday, but okay. Yeah. They have all these different terminologies now. The thing is, though, that I can never get used to the idea that it's legal, because even if it's legal, I was walking through New York, and it's legal in New York now. So, but I still felt like I had to, like I was paranoid about being caught, and I was like, and my friend's like, no, it's legal now. I'm like, I don't know, I don't believe it. Like I can't believe it, because I'm so used to having to hide all that crap.
Well, that's what they've done. That's what they've done to your mindset, man. Like, to all the years and all the crazy stories of people being locked up for weed.
Oh, horrible.
It's insane.
It's horrible.
Thank God it's like coming around now. Like back in the day, like 20 years ago, if you got caught with a joint in Texas, that was a 10-year sentence. You know what I mean? Now you don't really have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so extreme. And do you remember if you ever see the old like informational films or videos about the dangers of marijuana?
The weed propaganda?
Yeah. Like
marijuana cigarettes.
A marijuana cigarette will lead to deviation, homosexuality, a life of crime. I was like, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being a deviant. Second of all, I think alcohol is going to lead you to homosexuality way before any type of friggin'.
And look, man, if anything you're putting in your body, you want to blame on leading you to homosexuality, you were already there. You just needed the extra.
Right.
Jump.
The real thing that led you to homosexuality was that fella's balls, I guess. I don't know. but they used to do things like that. And the whole idea, like also the gateway drug thing.
Yeah.
Which I never believed, because I never did anything stronger than weed myself.
Right.
So, and everything I ever did, no one pressured me. I did it myself. I did it because I wanted to do it. So like I can never blame anybody. Even when I was drinking a lot, it was because I did it, not because anybody.
But the gateway drug, let's be real. And
it's cigarettes. You froze up. I don't know what you're saying. What'd you say?
Cigarettes and alcohol. Those are the gateway drugs.
Absolutely. And the reason why those are really gateways, because they're so okay, like they're allowed, they're considered normal. I love the old movies where you see like even the doctor is examining someone with a cigarette. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part. Now,
Lucky Strikes
mean fine tobacco, the non-filters. I smoked those for a while, and they actually, the thing about cigarettes that people need to understand is that they're not good for you, but they are kind of awesome.
especially like when you're really high and you just like need something.
That's the first.
I go to my handy dandy
What is it? Lucky Strike. Yeah. Is that the filtered one? Is that the filtered kind?
Filtered, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky Strikes. Yeah. Lucky Strikes. That's an old brand, but that's a good brand. It's a strong brand. You want a strong cigarette too. I don't like these. I don't like things that don't taste or aren't what they're supposed to be. Like I like cigars too, but I don't like my friends like this cigar tastes like chocolate. What the fuck do I want to smoke chocolate for? I want a cigar that tastes like a cigar. Or when I drank, like, sometimes women are like this, but guys are like this too now too. They'll be like, look, I got marshmallow vodka. Who the fuck wants to drink marshmallow?
Yeah.
You know?
You want some pumpkin ale? No, I fucking don't want pumpkin ale. I want a goddamn Budweiser. What are you talking about?
Yeah, pumpkin ale sounds like the name of somebody who got beat up in school.
Yeah, exactly.
No, look, it's pumpkin ale. Let's beat the hell out of it.
Yeah, I can't stand all that shit. Like, my uncle, he's really, he's one of those drinkers. Like, if I'm drinking to get fucked up. Like, I drink maybe like once, twice a year. I don't drink for the flavor of it. I never understood how people enjoy the flavor.
Nobody really. I don't think people really do enjoy the flavor. I think they get used to it. Like that's what I never understood about like O'Doul's or one of those non-alcoholic beers. You know.
I guess if you're an alcoholic and you need something in your hand to drink that reminds you of beer, go for it.
Yeah, that's a big scam that they get away with, those non-alcoholic beers. I mean, that's like that's like an empty cigarette. Like, you know, like what I will sell you an empty one. Okay. What are you, an idiot? You know?
Yeah. Well, so and the same thing with cigarettes. Some people just need something.
Yeah. There's like a fixation. You need to do something like that. But yeah, they always used to say like weed is the gateway drug. It's a horrible thing and everything like that. And it's really not. It's really, I think it's a value changer. I think it makes you try to understand people better. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it makes your mind think. You know what I mean? It's not like alcohol where you get wasted and you're not thinking about anything and you have no guilt till the next day. As soon as you smoke weed, you're like, oh, should I have picked on that kid in like 8th grade? That was fucked up.
Right. You start to think about right. Because if you get really drunk, there's two things. There's three things you do if you get really drunk. You either get really horny, or you get depressed, or you get mad.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be festive when you're with people, but those are the three things that could happen. And so
the three emotions of alcohol.
Right. But when you're smoking weed, it's more like, I think I should finally finish that book I was writing. Like you'll start to think about things like that. You're like, oh, wait. You know, you'll start doing things like that. And people think it's more of a lazy thing. And I don't think it really is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that must come from the propaganda of the 60s and 70s, or I don't know where that comes from, why people think you get lazy like immediately when you start smoking weed. Like I think that's more also of like a female, not to sound like a misogynist here, but like that comes from more females that I've heard in my life. It's like, oh, you're gonna get lazy, or people who smoke weed, you know, like it's what it seems like to me. I've never heard no dude say, oh, don't smoke that, you'll be lazy.
Yeah. Well, nobody,
You know?
and nobody who does it or did it really can tell you that it was bad. So I'm a big fan of Bing Crosby, and Crosby, you wouldn't think this, but he was
a pot smoker.
Yeah, right. So at the end of his life in the 1970s, when he was in his 70s, he did an interview with Barbara Walters, and she said, "What would you do if one of your kids smoked marijuana?" And it's a weird thing. You're going to ask Bing Crosby about marijuana. You know, it sounds like a sacrilegious thing to do, but he doesn't even blink. He goes, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it should be legalized.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I just watched that interview like 2-3 days ago. And what's funny, about weed, he's like, yeah, it's totally like legalize it. And then now what if one of your children get married or don't get married, but live with a woman? And he's like, oh, I would never talk to him again.
Yeah. Well, there was that aspect to it too. Yeah. So he was still an old school Catholic, so to speak. But so there are a lot of people who did that and do that and still do it and everything like that.
I heard Bob Hope. I'm not saying Bob Hope smoked weed, but when he was in weed jokes, for the Vietnam troops and stuff over there, but they would always cut him out for the television version of it.
There are at least two road movies that have weed jokes. The Bob Hope, Bing Crosby road movies. Two of them have weed jokes in them. In The Road to Morocco, when they're hiding and dressing as Arabs, these other Arabs at the party are rolling something. They're rolling stuff, and Bing and Bob pass, and Bob goes, "What are you doing? Making reefers?" And the second one is in another.
Wow, I missed that.
Yeah, and there's another one in another road movie called The Road to Rio. Rio? Yeah, The Road to Rio. They're on a boat and they're stowaways, and Bing smoked a pipe, and he always smoked a pipe, and he lost his pipe. And at some point, the captain finds the pipe for him and gives him the pipe. And when he grabs the pipe, he goes, "Now I can smoke up and learn the truth." 1947.
Yeah, check this out.
Yeah, there it is. Road to Morocco.
Got it, bro.
That's my favorite.
I love them.
That's my favorite one. So that's how we connected, because you said you were watching my Bob Hope episode. And that's the funny thing. It's like, people are going to say, "How'd you get this rapper on your show?" Bob Hope. It was Bob Hope. Everybody likes Bob Hope. Hope.
What I loved about that podcast, and I've watched it several times, because there's no fucking podcast where they're going in depth on Bob Hope. You could find a lot of like podcasts with his radio shows, or like little segments of like talking about his USO stuff, like for 30 minutes. But I haven't found an in-depth podcast about Bob Hope, and that's why, like, every time I want to hear some shit, I go back to your episode where you're talking about it. I'm like, this is the only in-depth thing I've found.
Yeah, because I think he was so famous for so long and lived so long that people forgot how influential he was and how good he was. Like there are like when I was growing up, Bob Hope was an old man already. I'm saying, he was already an really old guy. And he was sort of famous for being Bob Hope. And it wasn't until I got into the old movies and got into Bing Crosby and then saw the Bob Hope movies, I was like, he's excellent. Like, why don't people like that was the point of that particular podcast, was that a lot of most stand-up comedians don't ever cite Bob Hope as an influence, but he is, and they don't even know it, but they'll cite even Groucho Marx or someone older than Bob Hope before they'll ever cite Bob Hope. Because he was just too popular and for too long, and people took him for granted.
I hate that. I wish he would have died like earlier. That's fucked up to say, right. But just so he could get the respect. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because like you said, man, he was a fucking innovator, man, and like he's so good. And those movies from the 40s and 50s hold up so good, and you wouldn't think they would. But yes, they're so good, dude. I've watched so many of them. Yeah. And every single one, I'm like, this guy, I understand why he was so big. Like, I understand why he was so beloved. And then over the years, when he gets to be old and he's doing those TV specials and it's just like kind of hack and it's not very funny most of the time, he kind of he sabotaged or ruined his career because of that.
His legacy, right? But because like that's what I mean. He was around forever. I mean, he was he had a lifetime contract with NBC. NBC didn't fire him. They convinced him that maybe it's time to stop. Like that's what they did. And he was already in his 90s. In the 90s, he died in, what was it? He was 100 when he died. He lived to be 100. So he died in 2003, I think it was, in 2003. And he was making specials in the 1990s and stuff like that. And he was already very old. But if you look at those original movies, I mean, he's like he's excellent. He's like streamlined. He's like he's like a cartoon character. He's perfect. He's perfect.
He's perfection.
Yeah.
Perfection.
and he could throw lines at you and just go through different things. I mean, there are lines that Bob Hope says in movies that sometimes I don't exactly know what he means, but they're just funny. Like in that movie that you just showed me the cover of, in Road to Morocco, they talk about Bob Hope also plays his own Aunt Lucy in that movie. Yeah, right. The ghost of Aunt Lucy, because Aunt Lucy's dead. So they talk about that. Him and Crosby are talking about, you promised, he says to Crosby, that you would take care of me. You told Aunt Lucy on her deathbed. And he goes, well, she up and died before I had a chance to say no. And he's like, well, don't say that. You know, she could hear you. And Crosby's like, no. When they're dead, they're dead. And he goes, not Aunt Lucy. She was a Republican. I don't really know what that means. Means, but it's funny, you know. She's not dead. She's a Republican. He says that in the first Road movie too. They're trying to catch a swordfish, a big swordfish or marlin or something in the water. And Crosby goes, he won't give up. And Hope goes, oh, a Republican. I don't even know what that means, but it's still, you know, yeah, there's
it just made me excited that there was somebody who understood the depth of Bob Hope. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to find, bro.
Yeah.
I know Johnny Carson, like he respected and admired Bob Hope, but like he started to hate him
because he had to always let him on his show. He was the only guy who was bigger than Carson, and he was like, I got to bring him on the show again. He's going to show a 5-minute clip of his special, but he couldn't say no to Bob Hope. You know, yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, Hope was,
and you do have like I know Richard Pryor referenced Bob Hope in a couple interviews, and Woody Allen, obviously. And I've heard Joe Rogan talk about Bob Hope, that he like admired Bob Hope, but he didn't think he was funny, that kind of shit. But it's like, yo, so you need to go watch Bob Hope's movies, or go, you know, the 40s and 50s one. Oh, Gilbert Gottfried is another one who talks about Bob Hope all the time.
Yeah.
And he's listening to him, I got the idea that, Bob Hope's movies from the 60s probably suck. And then I went and I watched a bunch of them. I'm like, no, this is still pretty good. Like, I don't think Bob Hope had a terrible movie career after the 50s. Like, 8 on the Lamb was pretty great. You know, there was a lot of dope stuff from the 60s too. And he did a movie with Jackie Gleason. I watched.
Yes, I was just going to bring that up. It's How to Commit Marriage.
Yeah, How to Commit Marriage. I'm like, yo, I love The Honeymooners. I love Jackie Gleason is a national treasure. You know? And so to see them together, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And they had a couple scenes where they were just like talking shit back and forth, and it was so good. And that was 1969. And that was still great. You know?
Now, if you read the reviews of it online, it's supposedly a terrible movie, but it's great just to see those guys. And isn't it also partly, that movie is partly a satire of the record business, because isn't one of them?
Oh yeah. It's hilarious. Like the band in that movie is just like,
do you remember do you remember the name? Do you remember the name?
I don't.
The Comfortable Chairs.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I felt like they were mocking the music of the era. Because that is what it was, all that hippy dippy shit, where they're like, you know, and it's just a horrible shit. I thought it was amazing. I love that movie, and it's on YouTube. And I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of good Bob Hope movies. And on your suggestion, you talked about it in the podcast, The Iron Petticoat, I believe it's called. I watched that one
with Katharine Hepburn.
Yes,
yeah,
and that movie blew my wig, man. That movie was so good.
Yeah, that movie is actually a remake of an old Ernst Lubitsch movie that starred Greta Garbo. It was her only comedy. It was a big hit called Ninotchka, and it's the same plot. Okay. It's the same plot. And Katharine Hepburn is trying to do a Greta Garbo Ninotchka impersonation in that movie that whole time. And she really wanted to make like a Garbo movie. And then when Hope got into the movie, it became more of a Hope movie with his one-liners and everything like that. And what happened with that movie in particular is that it was a successful movie, but the director was on Hepburn's side, and Hepburn, the director, denounced the movie. The director took an ad out in the Variety saying, "We don't think this is a good movie," even though the movie was going to be successful. Yeah. So Hope took another ad out going, "I'm sorry, the director doesn't like a hit."
Wow, man. That's mind blowing. I never would have thought that. The movie seemed like an instant classic. Right after I watched it, I'm like, this is a classic.
Yeah, no, there's so many great. He's so great. There's My Favorite Spy is a good movie. My Favorite Brunette. He has a couple of ones called My Favorite.
I've seen My Favorite. There's I'm working on my Amazon DVD list because you can find a lot of these on YouTube, but some of them you can't find anywhere, you know? Yeah. So the Ghost Breakers is one I haven't seen yet, but I keep hearing, like, anytime I look up stuff or look up reviews, it's just like nothing but great stuff.
That's an early that's an early one. That's before he made the road movies. So he's starting to become famous. And that movie is like, there's so many movies that are like that movie now, like about a comedian, or, well, it stars a comedian, but you have to stay in a haunted house overnight to get the inheritance and all that stuff, you know? So there's, and it's made with Paulette Goddard, who was Mrs. Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, she's beautiful. I love that girl.
Yeah. You know why she broke up with Charlie Chaplin, huh? He was too quiet in bed.
What?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin don't speak. You saw Charlie Chaplin. She likes people who make noise. I don't know.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, but yeah, Ghost Breakers is good. All the road movies are good. I even
like the Road to Hong Kong, and people shit on it because Dorothy Lamour's in it for like half a second, but I thought it was pretty great.
No, the Road to Hong Kong is good. I would say the Road to Hong Kong is pretty good. The one I'm not crazy about is the one in color, The Road to Bali. That one's okay, but the Road to Hong Kong's good. The Road to Hong Kong and the Road to Hong Kong was shot in Britain, so it has all those people like Peter Sellers in it and different people in it. And that was their last road movie. That's like 62 or something like that. But all those movies. My Favorite Spy is another good one too. He did a lot of movies that comedians almost do all the time now, where they either play a cop or a detective. He was really the first. He was the first guy to do that. You know, make all those cop and detective spy movies that were.
I've seen My Favorite Brunette because it's on YouTube, but I can't find My Favorite Spy anywhere. So I'm gonna have to like get that on DVD and watch it if it's on DVD.
There's also what is that called? The movie he made with Mickey Rooney.
Oh, I got that on my playlist. That's on YouTube as well.
Yeah, what is that called? They're in the army and Mickey Rooney's a boxer. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the movie now. And
I'll pull it up right now.
And it stars Marilyn Maxwell, who was Hope's mistress.
Off Limits is the one with Mickey Rooney.
Off Limits is the one with Mickey Rooney too. I'm a big Mickey Rooney fan too. I like Mickey Rooney.
Yeah.
But those are all great stuff. So that's actually how we got to know each other. Out of the blue, you were like, I like Bob Hope too. I'm like, what do you do? I'm a metalhead hip hop rapper. And I was like, naturally. Of course. Right.
You know what's funny is I'm actually working on an EP in the year that's every 3 months, 5 tracks each. And I did one that came out in January called In Their Blood and From the Gutter, and it's all about the son of Sam, right? The 44 caliber killer. And my next one is gonna be like I got a song called Ralph and Alice. I'm working on, I got all kinds of like Bob Hope samples mixed in. Like it's all right. Yeah, I got a song called Myrna Loy, the girl from The Thin Man.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be all old school stuff, So I'm going from serial killer to classic cinema.
It's a natural progression.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what I mean. You are obsessed with things in the culture. That's how I introduced you in the beginning of it. I was like, there are things that you're obviously obsessed with, because for somebody to be able to talk to me about KRS-One and then Bob Hope, I mean, Jesus Christ.
When you put it like that, yeah. So
well, I mean, no, it means that you're paying attention to things, you know?
Oh no, Russia's gonna be our enemy forever, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we all hating? I mean, look, man, like whatever political ideas somebody holds, whatever. But like the fact that we're still like pinning everything on Russia and like look at Russia like the fucking like it's the Cold War.
Yeah, it's terrible. But you know what they should do if they really want to get Russia to relax is you have to give everybody in Russia Tetris, because they like to play Tetris. I know this because I used to play Tetris on my Game Boy. And Russians love to play Tetris. It's a famous Russian pastime. You go up to Putin. If he's thinking of bombing someone, you give him a Game Boy and you turn on Tetris. And once he hears the music, he will start playing. Forget about war. I play Tetris.
I hear Russians love.
You know, I could do, I don't speak Russian, but I can do my impression of Sylvester the cat if he were Russian. If you would like.
Oh, I am Sylvester the cat.
No. It's like this is it. Okay. This is it. This is the right way to do it.
All right.
Suffering fuckatash Insky. That's the way to do it. That's the perfection. That's the way you got to do it. So I think the reason why that you have friends that are comedians is because comedians in their work, like rappers, are obsessed with the exact right word for a lyric or a joke, what exactly conveys exactly what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely I do a lot of rewriting, and it's something I never did when I was younger. This is just like the last couple of years, because I'll go back and I'll listen to some shit that I did like 5-10 years ago, and I'll be like, that doesn't fit. I was just cramming that word in there just to use it, right? You know, so that's a very a good point. Like, you have to sit there and really focus on what's going to work for this specific thing. Yeah. And like comedians have like, is this funny? If this isn't funny, I have to find a different word or a describing word, you know?
Well, sometimes it could be just the difference between one little word and the other that makes the whole thing work or the whole thing fail. It's totally that way. It's totally that way all the time, you know? Just like the Sylvester the cat imitation I did. It's only because I said Insky that it works, and the fact that, you know, but that's the best one, you know. But so it is the same thing. So you're going to be doing a lot of work then, because you said you're going to be making EPs. You're going to be making sure that you're always putting stuff out. Do you think that people with the pandemic they should have been making lots of material, right? That's what I think.
I don't know what. Yeah, dude. I don't know what the fuck the excuse is. Like, you absolutely have no excuse to not drop a new album or work on your material, or, you know what I mean? Like, during the pandemic so far, I've released 3 mixtapes, a full-length album on Sony, 2 EPs, and a side project with Big Left from the Coca Nostra. You know what I mean? Like, that's all in the last 2.5 years. Dorothy Kilgallen, who was highly associated with the JFK case, and she had a big beef with Sinatra, and they would go back and forth calling each other. He called her the Chinless Wonder and shit like that. And when she was found dead, a lot of people were like pointing to Sinatra. It's like, really, you think Frank Sinatra is gonna have someone killed because she's writing things he doesn't like? Like, get the fuck out. Like, there's some stories like that.
I don't think Sinatra was involved in that, but
I don't either.
But she did die weirdly all of a sudden, and she was trying to find out things about the Kennedy assassination, you know.
Yes, I believe that don't believe that she died, you know, the way they said. I definitely believe she was murdered by someone in the JFK world, you know. But to point to Frank Sinatra of all people is ridiculous.
And she was Dorothy Kilgallen was not only a column writer in the paper, but she was on TV all the time. She was on this game
What's My
show,
Line?
What's My Line? She was one of the panel all the time, and so she was most columnists are not famous. She was famous probably because of that TV show, but it is strange. That's another one of those sort of unsolved things, like really what happened to Dorothy Kilgallen. I think what's happening, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, I think we're seeing the beginnings of the next rap video, and this one will be about the lady who disappeared from the TV or something instead of the
I'm not gonna lie, I have pondered writing a song about Dorothy Kilgallen because I read this book by an author named Mark Shaw. It's called The Reporter Who Knew Too Much, and it was amazing. I'm like, I gotta write a song about this. So you nailed it.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were gonna do that. So, what is going to be the name of your next EP when it have come out?
I haven't come up with a name for it. It'll be something Bob Hope related, probably.
Really?
Thanks for the memory or something. I don't know. I don't know if I'll go that blunt with it, but
you should call it
something Bob Hope related.
You should call it The Road to Something. You know, not to something, to something. Yeah.
I know when Bob Hope and Bing Crosby were talking about after Road to Hong Kong, they were going to do another Road to movie, and they joked that it would be called The Road to Medicare.
The Road to Medicare. Well, they were gonna do The Road to the Fountain of Youth, and it was gonna be. There's even an interview with Bing, I think only a few months before he died, talking about the movie, saying he wanted to get it. They wanted a writer like a Mel Brooks type of writer to write make it really wacky and stuff like that, but he died, so they didn't do the movie.
Yeah, I think that still would have been a good movie. You know?
Yeah, probably would have been good. They were still good together. You know, there's clips of them even into the 1970s when they come on TV together. They're still great together, and who knows what would have happened. Bob Hope's last movie, do you know what it was? Now, he wasn't the star in it. He just made an appearance.
The Muppet movie?
No, that's a good one though. No. It's later than that. It's from the 80s. It's a movie that is basically a tribute to the road movies called Spies Like Us with
Chevy Chase.
Chase and Dan Aykroyd. And it's basically like a road movie. And at one point they're in Morocco or somewhere in a tent, and Aykroyd and Chase are talking to each other, and this golf ball flies into the tent, and Bob Hope comes out of nowhere. He goes, "Mind if I play through?" And he plays through, and then he leaves, and they're like, "Oh!" And it's totally like what would happen in one of the road movies, you know. And that was his last appearance.
I gotta watch that.
Spies Like Us. Yeah, that Spies Like Us is like an homage to the road movies. Though, just like we were talking about before, it also is about Soviet spies and Soviet things. It's like we can't get away from them. We can't get away from them.
They're the perfect bad guy.
They're the perfect bad guy. Soda Popinski. Do you remember Soda Popinski? Do you know who Soda Popinski is?
No.
That's from the game Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, the Nintendo game. That was one of the people you fight is a guy named Soda Popinski. He's a big Russian guy, and he drinks soda pop. So he's Soda Popinski. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So you're going to be doing a bunch of work. You're going to be making a lot of music. And Black Eyed Children is still out. Everybody can see it. Where can they check out all your stuff?
So YouTube, Scribble Official, if you want to see my music videos, everything like that. If you want to listen to my music, it's on all streaming platforms, anywhere you download music, anywhere you stream. If you want to follow me on Instagram at Scribble Official. I don't do Twitter. I mean, I have a Twitter. I don't do Facebook. I have those, but if you want to get in contact with me, it's Scribble Official on Instagram.
And spell that, because you don't spell it regular.
Skribbal.
Yeah, you know what? You froze for that, so do it again.
God damn it.
Yeah.
SK.
You froze again. You froze. Okay, do it again.
Dude, the internet does not want those. Bro.
I know.
Skribbal.
Scribble. Now, before we wrap up here,
yeah,
what is the significance of Scribble? Why did you? Every rapper needs to have a name. What did you choose? Because obviously, Melly Mel has been taken already, so you can't do Melly Mel. So
I love that reference, Melly Mel.
So and you can't be the rapping cowboy daha. You can't do that either.
So I gotta give all credit to my 8th grade teacher, English teacher, Miss Jensen. I was never a good student in school, high school dropout, got my GED later. All I would do is sit down and write lyrics in class. Even in, from like starting in like 5th grade, 6th grade, I would just write lyrics. And Miss Jensen got sick of me writing lyrics, and she started calling me Scribble because she would look at my horrible writing and it would be just a bunch of scribbles. So she started calling me Scribble. I'm like, that's kind of dope. I'm gonna keep that, because at the time I was going by what I was being called at school, because once I moved, I was going by white boy. So she gave me my legit rap name. So I'm like, you know what? I'm taking that. So thank you, Miss Jensen.
Yeah. And you have been Scribble ever since.
That's right.
Hey, do you do scratches?
I don't. I love real DJs though. And I have them on every single one of my releases. Shout out to my boy DJ Chunk. He's actually the DJ for this guy Ouija Mac, who's on ICP's label. So that's another ICP connection. So he does all the scratching you hear on Skinwalker, on my EPs. He does all that stuff, and it's a true talent, man. And it's kind of tablelists who actually get down and cut and sample and make it crazy. Most DJ, you think of a DJ now, it's someone who goes on stage and hits a button on their laptop.
Right.
So yeah, I love it.
And being affiliated with Sony, do you think you could have them fix my PlayStation? Sorry, I couldn't resist it.
Shit. Let me ask.
Thank you.
Let me contact him right now.
Yes, I appreciate that. Because I want to play Halo. So what was I going to say to you? So good. We could check out all your stuff, and I'm looking forward to that. And I bet you are going to do a Dorothy Killed Down thing. And I'm looking forward to whatever these Bob Hope references. When you say you have Bob Hope references in this upcoming thing, do you mean like sound bites of him?
Yes, I have samples. I have references in the lyrics. The whole intro is a clip from a 1947 radio show, and it's real hilarious. It's a great clip. And I heard it, and I'm like, I gotta cut that for the EP. That's like got to be the first thing you hear. So you'll hear like the static and the burning, and then you'll hear that, and then the beat will drop.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so
and the first line in that is, "Bitch, I'm fucking Bob."
Bitch, I'm what? What'd you say? Because you froze up again.
Like, bitch, I'm like motherfucking Bob Hope. That's the first line.
I love it.
Yo, 29, but my soul feel 90. In my mind, I'm Bob Hope and Crosby. On the road to make dough and rock shows. From Morocco to Bali, I'm godly. Dean Martin wasted, don't start your face it. I'm lost to my patience. Off in my spaceship, so alienated, prone to lose sight of the time that I wasted.
So that's what we have to do. We have to check out Scribble, check out all the stuff, check out Black Eyed Children. That's album's already out. It includes The Man Who Fell from the Sky, which is the DB Cooper a piece. And you could also see on YouTube the video. I suggest look at the video. The animation is interesting. All of Scribble's videos are interesting as pieces of theater, and that's what's really good about it. And we're gonna definitely check you out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I am the Great Goonan. This has been the Great Goonan Podcast, and I've been talking to Scribble. Remember, folks, Bob Hope lives. Peace.
sick in the head.